Bienvenidos, Hushamdid, and welcome Anne Arundel Community College learners from the CTS-131 Section 402 course for the spring 2021 semester. This is the Cisco Networking Academy's Switching, Routing, and Wireless Essentials version 7 course curriculum. And in this packet tracer tutorial and solution set, we're going to be taking a look at packet tracer activity 3.3.12, where we're going to be doing some VLAN configuration. So let's go ahead and dive in and take a look at the topology as it exists. Now, I want to first point out, remember, these are all layer 2 switches. These are all 2960 layer 2 switches in here, meaning we're going to have trunk ports between the switches so that VLAN information can transit these links. Also note, and this is very important when we talk about the dynamic trunking protocol, or DTP, that DTP is set to dynamic auto on all Cisco switch ports by default. In older switches, like a 3550, which you probably won't run into in a production environment. However, back then in the day, the 3550, as well as other Cisco switches, had the default DTP setting set to dynamic desirable, meaning switches would form trunk ports when plugged in together. Now, if it doesn't form a trunk port, the question is, what kind of a port is formed? Well, we're going to see that by default, if both sides are dynamic auto, that it will be an access port. So let's go ahead and dive in here. You can see the PCs and all the addresses here. So let's display the current VLANs. So on switch 1, and let's get switch 1 up and ready to go here. Let's take a look at the configuration on switch 1. So we'll go from user exec mode, as evidenced by the greater than sign, using the enable command, into privilege exec mode. And I'm simply going to say show VLAN brief. And as you can see, we have VLAN 1, which is our default VLAN, excuse me, and then these other reserved VLANs, which in current networks today, not used much, right? In fact, I've never seen these used in the last 15, 20 years. All right, so we've taken a look and we've seen that all interfaces are assigned to VLAN 1. Notice that each PC can ping the other PC that shares the same subnet. So, for example, if I pull PC 6 up, can I ping PC 3? So let's say ping 172.17.30.23. Now, they can ping each other because they are in the same subnet. But remember, all of the ports on all of the switches, and we're going to have to work on all of them, so let's get them all up here. Let's pull switch 2 up, and let's say show VLAN brief. And you can see every port is in VLAN 1. And so right now, everybody is in VLAN 1 together, even though we have different IP subnets assigned to the PCs. Everybody's in the same VLAN. So PC1 can ping 4, 2, 5, and 3, 6. Pings to hosts on other networks, other subnets will fail. And so what benefits can VLANs provide to the network? Well, it provides segmentation, right? It allows us to make it so that we only have certain devices in the same VLAN, in the same subnet, in the same broadcast domain. And we don't want to use VLAN 1 for anything. All right, well, let's go ahead here and let's dive in. And they're asking us on switch 1 to create a faculty staff VLAN. And they're actually going to give us the command there. So we're simply going to say VLAN 10, and then name is faculty/staff. And you can see we picked up 5 points for that as well. Now it wants us to create the remaining VLANs. So VLAN 20, and the name will be students. VLAN 30, and the name will be guest, and we'll say default. And then VLAN 99 is going to be management & native. So this is our management VLAN and our native VLAN. And then we have VLAN 150, which is going to be our voice, all capital, and that is going to be our voice VLAN. Excuse me. All right, so which command will only display the VLAN name, status, and associated switch ports? Well, let's see about show VLAN brief. Whoops, sorry. Do show VLAN brief. And there we go. We see the VLAN name, we see the status, and we see associated ports. Well, we also see the VLAN number over here on the left-hand side. And so here are the 5 VLANs that we have created. We're going to use the same commands from step 1 to create and name the same VLANs on switch 2 and switch 3. And so here's where I'm going to give you a little hint. For muscle memory, it's a good idea to go ahead and type these commands out. However, there may come a time when the commands seem to be a little bit repetitive and maybe you have the commands down pretty much. And so let's do this. What if I was to script what was going to be done? Well, remember, if I get logged in, I need to go into privilege exec mode. So I would issue the enable command. And then I would need to type in configure terminal to get into global config, where from global config, I can say VLAN 10 name students. And actually, let me double check the VLAN names here real quick. A faculty staff. So VLAN 10 is going to be faculty / staff. VLAN 20 is going to be students. Oops, sorry, VLAN 20 and then name students. And so all I'm doing is putting the commands into a text file here. VLAN 30 is guest default. So VLAN 30 name is guest and then in parentheses default. And then VLAN 40, oops, sorry, I think it's going to be 99. VLAN 99 is management and native. Name, management, and native. And then VLAN 150, and the name will be voice. Now, that would be all of the commands that we would need to run. And then from here, I would say end, and that's going to put me in privilege exec. And then I'm going to issue the write memory command to save my running config. And then I'm going to go ahead and say show VLAN brief. So if I was to copy this, and let's go ahead and do that right now, and let's come back over to Packet Tracer here, and let's go to switch 2, because again, we're creating all of the same VLANs. So let me exit out. And again, if I was coming onto the switch, here I am in user exec mode. Let's go ahead and see if it worked. And take a look at that. It configured everything that needed to be configured, and there is my show VLAN brief. Pretty cool, right? And again, as long as you have every single command in the interceding commands like end or exit to get you back into the right mode, whoops, this is a fantastic way to shorten the amount of time it takes for you. And so I'll say disable here instead of exiting all the way out. And then let's paste it right back here. And there we go. Whoops, and there we go. So we're done with all the VLAN creation. So that worked out pretty well. So now we're going to come down here to part 3. Assign VLANs to ports. So configure the interfaces as access ports and assign the VLANs as follows. And now this is assign VLANs to the active. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything here. Hold on one second. Were we doing anything on? No, okay, good. All right. So on switch number 2, so let's come over here to switch number 2. And they're going to give us a little assist here. So we're going to get into global config mode. I'm going to get into interface fast Ethernet 011. We're going to say switch port mode access. And we're going to hard code it as an access port. And then we're going to say switch port access VLAN 10. And so we're going to assign this port into VLAN 10. So now when I say do show VLAN brief, you'll notice that the VLAN 10 faculty staff VLAN now has port fast Ethernet 011 assigned. All right, so that takes care of that. And now we're going to assign the remaining ports to the appropriate VLANs. So we're going to interface fast Ethernet 018, and we're going to say switch port mode access, and we're going to say switch port access VLAN 20. Then we're going to say interface fast Ethernet 06. Oops, sorry about that. Interface fast Ethernet 06. And we're going to say switch port mode access, and then switch port access VLAN 30. So those 3 ports have each been put into their own mutually exclusive VLAN, right? And we're going to go over and we're going to do the same thing on switch number 3. And as I had commented earlier, we've got other configuration to do, but if you didn't want to wait for spanning tree to work itself out here, you can always come down and hit these arrows. I'm not a big fan of the arrows. I just kind of let spanning tree do its thing and I'll go out and do other stuff. But if you're in a rush, you can do that as well. So let's go ahead. We're on switch 3, interface fast Ethernet 011. We're going to say switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 10, interface fast Ethernet 018, switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 20, and then interface fast Ethernet 06, switch port mode access, and then switch port access VLAN 30. There we go. And hold on one second here. What's interesting, oh, okay, I see what they did. I'm sorry, I see what they did. All right, and then we're going to, the voice is what I was looking at, because I was looking up here and I did a quick glance and I said, wait a second, because we've got this voice VLAN and I didn't see the instructions down here below. So we're good to go. All right, excuse me. All right, so there are the VLANs. We're at 95%, so pretty confident with the final configuration on fast Ethernet 011 that we're going to be in good shape here on switch number 3. Because remember, here we have an IP phone, a Cisco IP phone connected to switch 3. So we need to indicate on that fast Ethernet interface 011 that there is also a voice VLAN. Because remember, when the PC plugs into the phone has like a little switch on the inside of it, right? And so we need to let this port know that there's also a voice VLAN that's going to be in play. And we're actually going to do some QoS work, right? We're going to say MLS, quality of service, trust, class of service. Excuse me. That have been assigned to the IP phone. So let's go ahead and dive in and let's get this switch port configured, interface fast Ethernet 011, and we're going to say, MLS, QoS, trust, class of service, right? And again, what that's doing is it's making sure that it's going to not adhere to, but respect the any class of service values that are assigned to that IP phone. And then we're going to say switch port voice VOICE, voice VLAN 150. And I had commented on this earlier when we talked about more than one VLAN on a port. And I had said, no, you cannot have more than one VLAN assigned to a port with the exception of the voice VLAN. So let's say do show VLAN brief. And here you can see that VLAN 10 is assigned to fast Ethernet 11, and so is the voice VLAN, VLAN 150. In fact, if I say do show run, and let's go take a look at the VLAN 10 interface, you can see right here, we have 2 switch port VLAN statements, but one's for voice and one is for data access, right? And we're going to be getting into quality of service and class of service. Those are topics we dive deeper into in the ENSA version 7 course. There's an entire chapter dedicated to that. So we are at 100%. Let's ping between PC1 and PC4, and we're going to do PC1 and 4 to make sure that we don't have an issue here with this phone being connected in. And so let's ping 172.17.10.24. And remember, these are trunk links between switch 1 and 2 and switch 1 and 3, which I'm assuming, I believe there's an activity coming up where we are going to have to configure that information. So we time out a couple times, but then we should end up with successful pings here. And did I type something wrong in here? 172.17.10. And that should have worked. Hold on one second. Oh, no. Okay, so it looks like the pings are not supposed to be successful. What could be done to resolve this issue? Well, let's check here. And I thought it was in a follow-on activity, do show interface trunk. Do we have trunk links? We do not. Do show interface trunk. So kind of an odd activity where there are no trunk links here. So that's our problem. That's the answer to why this is not working, is there are no trunk links. So let's deal with that, right? Interface gigabit Ethernet 01. I'm going to say switch port mode trunk, switch port no negotiate. That turns off DTP. Let's come up to switch 1 and let's get into conf t interface gig 01. And sorry about that. I thought it was interesting that I thought the connectivity should work, that those were going to be trunk ports already and that maybe they would take them away in a subsequent activity. However, it looks like they walked us right into this one. So switch port mode trunk, that it was not supposed to work. Switch port no negotiate. And let's do the same thing, interface gigabit Ethernet 02. And let's pull those two commands up. All right, and then the last thing we need to do is switch number 3, interface gigabit Ethernet 02, switch port mode trunk, hard-coded as a trunk, switch port no negotiate, and turn off the dynamic trunking protocol. Don't need it. So now, and so interestingly enough, now let's hit the fast forward arrow there. As I just said, I usually don't use it, but again, we're kind of scrambling to wrap this up here. They don't ask us to do this, but this would fix our problem. So now if I say do show interface trunk, so show me the trunk links on this switch, and here we go. And this is a great command. The mode is on because we have hard-coded it and turned it on administratively as a trunk port. 802.1q, that is now the current default trunking encapsulation. It's the only trunking encapsulation on current Cisco switches for trunk links, right? There used to be something called ISL, inner switch link. Doesn't exist anymore. What is the status of the trunk link? Well, it's trunking. Our native VLAN is 1. We're not going to worry about the native VLAN just yet. And now let me come back over here and let's rerun that ping. And now the ping works. And so the reason it wasn't working before is if these aren't trunk links here, the only traffic that is going to transit those links, because they negotiated to be access ports, is VLAN 1, because they were in the default VLAN. And another little trivia question for you here. Now let's take a look at do show VLAN brief. And I'm going to leave you with this question, see if you can figure it out. Where is interface gigabit Ethernet 01 and 02 here? Why do those not show up on switch 1? Something to give some thought to that we're going to address as we move forward in the next activity. All right, well, that is going to do it for this packet tracer activity 3.3.12, where we got twisted there at the end, but we're able to recover and get things fixed. So never make assumptions, always check things out to see, hey, is this doing what I think it should be doing? All right, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you've got any questions, and I hope to see you in the next video.